One chilly autumn morning, at a small gas station on the outskirts of America, an 85-year-old veteran was knocked to the ground by a young man on a bicycle, simply for asking him to wait his turn. Blood poured from the veteran's temple, the crowd fell silent, and no one dared to intervene. 30 minutes later, two military-grade SUVs roared in. The first to step out was the police chief, his son. What turned a moment of violence into a powerful lesson in honor? John Jack Sullivan's story, an 85-year-old Korean War veteran, will take you from that initial shock to wonder at the strength of compassion. A man who once faced death on the battlefield now stands up for what is right, in a way no one expected. Join us on his journey, where respect is reclaimed and hearts are changed. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. Join us for more captivating and thrilling stories. Every Tuesday and Friday, while the sky still languished in dawn's embrace and a thin veil of mist clung to every rooftop, 85-year-old Jack Sullivan, a Korean War veteran, began his day with rituals so ingrained they felt part of his very flesh. At 4:30 a.m., his alarm would shrill him awake, dragging him from deep slumber. He rose on the edge of his weathered wooden bed, beneath the black and white photograph of himself and his brothers in arms that hung proudly on the wall. Then, with deliberate care, he reached for the crisp white shirt pressed flat the night before, tracing the smooth fabric with his fingertips. A sacred moment of self-respect and homage to military discipline. After donning his simple yet neatly tailored suit, he'd find the worn comb beside his mirror and groom his snow-white hair until every strand lay perfectly in place. Before his reflection, Jack's gaze would linger on the lines etched across his face, each one a testament to years of combat and sacrifice. Finally, he'd fasten the faded silver Korean War veteran badge to his left breast, a symbol dulled by time, but polished nightly by Jack's devoted hand, a ritual that honored both past glory and present responsibility to live up to his comrades' sacrifices. The creak of the family garage door signaled that it was time. Jack descended the porch steps in his soft-soled slippers, each footfall a muted echo in the pre-dawn hush. There sat his beloved 1996 Chevy Impala, second only in pride to his only son, Michael, now the local police chief. Small scratches on the hood and chips in the paint only underscored its steadfast character, reminders of countless journeys meticulously maintained with polish and elbow grease. Each time Jack lifted the hood to check the oil, he'd whisper, "You are my truest companion." He turned the key, the engine purring like a private symphony just for him. The Impala glided through the sleepy village streets, where street lamps cast hazy pools of light on dew-slick pavement. The 3-mile drive to Old Rusty's, a weathered gas station with a rust-streaked sign and a jangling bell whenever a car rolled in, was Jack's cherished pilgrimage. "Modern stations lack soul," he'd tell Michael. "A button press on a screen and you're gone. Here, they still use mechanical pumps and a creaking iron gate." That little bell didn't just announce a customer. It beckoned Jack back to simpler times, where a nod and a smile were currency enough. Arriving, Jack shut off the engine and stepped out with measured dignity. The quiet was punctuated only by a distant rumble of a passing truck. He rolled up his sleeve to wipe a smudge of grease from his wrist, then walked to the payment counter. An old iron desk beneath a cash-only sign, a relic beside a vintage cash register. He set his gas can on the counter and exchanged a knowing smile with the station's owner, a longtime friend who'd seen every vehicle come and go. Jack chuckled softly, repeating his mantra, "This place takes me back to when war hadn't gnawed at our souls." On this morning, the autumn breeze bit a little sharper, prompting Jack to drape a thin wool sweater over his suit before accepting the fuel ticket. In that moment, memories of the trenches rose unbidden. Silent steps through mud, sleepless nights on guard, comrades falling beside him. The calm of this dawn stood in stark contrast to that chaos, yet in Jack's heart both carried the same message: courage and duty. He inhaled deeply, letting the chill steel his resolve. Even in retirement, he must live worthy of the title veteran. Slowly, he clicked the pump into place with practiced fingers. Under the station's warm yellow lights, each drip of gasoline into the can felt like a crystallization of his life's moments, farewells, hopes, survival itself. He calculated the cost mentally, slid the bill across the counter, then turned to give his Impala one last affectionate pat, affirming the bond between man and machine. The bell rang once more, closing the pre-dawn chapter and opening the overture of a new day. Jack's unvarying routine of the last 15 years was far more than mindless habit. It embodied steadfastness and self-respect. Every crisp shirt, every polished badge, every 3-mile pilgrimage to old Rusty's reminded him of discipline and camaraderie. At 85, he knew time was precious, but in these rituals he found joy and purpose, motivation to rise each morning as he had when in uniform. And it was this very routine that would soon guide him toward a moment when honor and compassion would be tested and proved anew. When Jack Sullivan parked his Chevy Impala beside old Rusty's weathered pump, his breath billowed in thin clouds through the crisp autumn air. From the driver's seat, he watched 5 young men in scuffed leather jackets, each patched in mismatched colors, noisily gathered at the convenience store entrance. Helmets lay strewn across their bikes. Energy drink cans clinked on the concrete. Their laughter, sharp and mocking, mixed with the rat-a-tat of tapping brake levers, creating a chaotic soundtrack that shattered the morning's calm. Jack drew in a steadying breath. A twinge in his ancient knee reminded him of that merciless snowfall on Korean hills more than 7 decades ago. He stifled the ache and fixed his mind on today's small mission, to honor 15 years of routine with dignity and courtesy. A short line of customers waited behind him, eyes flicking anxiously toward the roaring motorcycles clogging the pump lane. A mother held her 2 wide-eyed children inside a sedan, their tiny faces pressed against the glass in confused curiosity. Jack opened his door and, hand trembling, reached for his cane long enough to brace himself. Each step was measured, the weight of 80-plus years behind him. Yet his soldier's bearing remained flawless. Spine straight, shoulders squared, gaze unwavering. He moved past the rowdy cluster. The soft jingle of fuel canisters echoed, an omen of a confrontation to come. As Jack lifted the pump handle, their laughter grew sharper, more menacing. The ringleader, a man about his son's age, turned with a sneer. A serpent tattoo curled across his throat. A silver eyebrow ring flashed under the harsh pump light, lending his smirk a dangerous gleam. Without a harsh word, Jack halted his motion. He lowered his head in the slightest nod, voice warm yet unyielding. "Gentlemen, please form a line." A simple request, basic courtesy anywhere, suddenly felt weighty amid the racket. The leader curled his lip, jabbing a friend's shoulder before stepping toward Jack. Soon, a half-circle of tanned, wiry figures surrounded him, all grins and bared challenge. Jack stood firm, pump still in hand, eyes tracking their every movement. Memories of icy nights on the front lines, the frenzy of jungle skirmishes, comrades' cries, they flooded his mind, anchoring his calm and self-respect. The leader spoke, voice dripping disdain. "Old man, Why bother with lines? We got here first. His tone brimmed with mockery. Jack did not flinch. He met the young man's gaze, steady as steel. I simply ask that we respect one another. Every person here has a day to continue. His measured words carried over the pump's hum, slipping into every ear, a plea between aggression and decency. Silence snapped taut as a wire. From the car, the mother craned forward. Anxiety softened in her eyes. Other patrons murmured. Some nodded to Jack in solidarity. Others remained frozen, fear and unease their only response. The calm before the storm. As if heeding an unspoken consensus, the leader cleared his throat and rolled up his sleeve, signaling his crew to step back. He opened his mouth to reply, but a distant siren broke through, heralding a priority vehicle's approach. Seizing the moment, Jack snapped the pump into the tank. The hiss of fuel blended with an engine's retreating roar. Normalcy returned, as though the courtesy and courage of an elder had triumphed. Jack rested the nozzle, nodded once toward the young men, then walked to the cashier. Each slow step reinforced his belief that change need not wield force. A polite reminder suffices to awaken conscience. Behind him, the youths watched in stunned silence. Shock and, surprisingly, respect glimmered in their eyes. At the counter, Jack set down his can, flipped open the coin box, and paid the exact amount. He nodded to the young cashier, years his junior, yet sharp and professional. Have a good day, he offered, voice gentle as autumn itself. The cashier returned a respectful smile and nodded in kind. Back at his Impala, Jack cast one last look at the group, their raucous bravado replaced by quiet observation. Some even raised a tentative wave. Humility, unthinkable moments earlier. A small smile curved Jack's lips. His mission was complete. He'd upheld courtesy and respect in a world too full of noise. He eased into the driver's seat, closed the door softly, and the engine purred to life. As the Impala rolled away from Old Rusty's, its exhaust drifted off into the autumn breeze, leaving behind stillness and the image of an old man steadfastly living by his principles. The 3-mile journey home would grant Jack a rare sense of peace before he resumed his daily ritual, polishing his veteran's badge, pressing his shirts, and preparing for another respectful Friday dawn. In the pale light of an autumn dawn, the air at Old Rusty's gas station felt thick. The scent of gasoline mingled with the cold mist drifting through the trees. All was silent, except for the steady clack of the pumps and the soft rustle of wind through dry leaves. Jack Sullivan stepped into the fuel area with deliberate steadiness. Though his knees bore the scars of time, he carried himself with the erect bearing of a soldier. Before he could even touch the pump handle, tension surged. 5 sun-leathered youths in patch-covered leather jackets had gathered messily behind him. Without a word, they formed a loose circle, blocking the aisle. Their eyes flicked chaotically from energy drink cans to Jack, his silver hair trembling as he fumbled with his brake lever. A towering figure, their leader, strode forward. He stood a full head above Jack, his shoulders broad as shields, each booted step hissing on the damp concrete. His voice rang out, dripping with mockery. Respect? For what? For an old man? His words were loud enough to drown the pump's hum. A serpent tattoo coiled around his throat, and his eyebrow ring glinted under the station's yellow lights. Jack did not falter. He slowly reached into his chest, touching the veteran's badge dulled by time. His eyes, calm yet steely, met the young man's glare. His voice spoke hoarsely, but each word carried authority. I bled so you could stand here in freedom. That is the only respect I ask." Each syllable fell with quiet power, as though echoing the trenches where blood was shed and comrades lay forever. A silence stretched that felt unending. The eastern sky revealed only a pale orange streak at the horizon, yet the atmosphere was heavier than any dawn Jack had known. The youth glanced at his friends, then sneered, "Oh, how touching. Thanks for your service. Why don't you head back to the nursing home and retell your war stories?" His voice boomed so all waiting customers heard. They exchanged worried glances. Jack said nothing. He turned back, trying to seat the nozzle, his knee throbbing but his will unbroken, a small obstacle compared to the frozen slopes of Korea. He lifted his head, ready to resume pumping, when the youth lunged forward, shoving Jack's shoulder, spinning him like an object, and delivering a swift cross-punch to his temple. The blow, modest by any boxing standard, was enough for an 85-year-old. Jack staggered, slipped on the pump's base, and collapsed onto the cold concrete with a sickening crack as his head met the edge. Stars bloomed behind his eyes, the world tilted, light fading. Jack could not brace himself. Blood welled from the tear in his temple, spreading a dark red warning across the gray pavement. Everything fell into a deadly hush. The attacker recoiled, stunned at what he had done. Blood on his knuckles. His victim slumped before him. His friends gaped. Their mocking laughter vanished, replaced by panic. Customers and station staff stood rigid, phones raised, but no one dared approach. The station felt draped in a mourning silence. Jack lay there, his white shirt stained brown-red. He did not cry out, only closed his eyes, breath shallow, his old heart fluttering. In that moment, wartime memories surged, gunfire, comrades' screams, the acrid sting of explosives, reminding him that violence wounded more than flesh. It shattered belief in human kindness. He felt the ache spread across his temple, but within him a small flame ignited. He would not let rudeness and ingratitude prevail. From behind came a muted rumble, breaking the silence. 2 black military SUVs roared through the station gate. Jack's son, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sullivan, the local police chief, and his team leapt out. Michael sprinted forward, uniform immaculate, face stern, eyes locked on his father. His officers whispered, setting up makeshift barriers, creating a safe corridor for Jack. Michael knelt beside him, hand on his shoulder, voice warm yet urgent. "Dad, are you okay?" Jack winced, feeling his son's calming touch. He slowly pushed himself upright, leaning on the pump, and offered a faint, proud smile. Blood still trickled down his face, but his eyes shone with the assertion that even victims deserve decency and respect. Meanwhile, the youth stepped back, eyes brimming with fear. He dared not meet Jack or Michael's gaze. A few customers edged forward with tissues to dab the blood. Others called for medical help. The station, once noisy and chaotic, fell under a solemn hush, witnesses now ready to speak for justice and compassion. The ambulance's engine growled its arrival. Medics quickly dressed Jack's wound. Michael helped his father onto the stretcher, easing him into the vehicle. Before the doors closed, Jack looked at the young attacker, not with anger, but with a lesson in his gaze. Freedom is precious, but without respecting one another, freedom cannot endure. His words lingered, gentle yet piercing to every conscience. The ambulance rolled away, leaving the crowd arrested in stillness. The youth, face ashen, gathered his helmet and quietly led his friends off. The station bell chimed once more, a poignant reminder that in life's chaos, courtesy and responsibility are not optional, but our duty. Jack's story, from a simple courtesy to an unexpected punch and his son's timely intervention, stands as living proof of honor and compassion's power. Having faced bullets and bombs, he remained steadfast in defending every person's right to respect, even as the victim himself. In that moment, hearts awoke to the truth that, amid life's noise, kindness still wields the greatest strength. Jack lay there on the damp concrete of Old Rusty's gas station, his vision blurred beneath the dark red stains spreading across his white shirt. He did not scream. He did not groan. His heart had learned silence long ago in the face of danger. In Korea, Jack had stifled the agony of shrapnel in his thigh. He had forced himself onward as comrades fell beside him. Today, even the blow to his temple that made him reel would not break his calm. He drew slow, ragged breaths, each inhale a battle for consciousness. He heard his own weakening heartbeat, the distant rumble of an ambulance engine, the faint jingle of the station bell. His eyes blurred, yet the scene held sharp clarity. The lonely pump, scattered energy drink cans, the silent faces of passers-by. But Jack would not lie down. He rolled onto his side, feeling ripples of pain wash through him. A flash of light above him flickered, then dimmed. Memory and present colliding. Wincing against the pain in his hip, he propped himself on the pump's edge. His wrist shook as he gripped the lever, oblivious to what had felled him. After several ragged breaths, Jack pushed himself partly upright, back braced against the pump, seeking steadiness in the storm. Blood trickled down his cheek, soaking the collar of his shirt. Its metallic tang made him frown, yet he did not stop. From his left breast pocket, Jack retrieved a soft handkerchief embroidered with a single J, his late wife's final gift. That cloth had wiped sweat on distant hills. It had caught tears from war's grim news. Now, he folded it carefully over the wound, pressing it to stem the flow. Eyes shut, he forced the handkerchief down, as if mending not only flesh, but a heart grown cold too many times. His mind spun. Images of wounded rifles, comrades' muffled cries, yet Jack refused to succumb to sorrow. He inhaled a deep, steadying breath. Sweat mingled with blood on his forehead, a reminder that he still lived, and that his duty was not yet done. Resolute in silence, Jack tilted his head left, trying to glimpse the arriving ambulances. They screeched to a halt. Doors swung open, and there appeared his son, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sullivan, stride confident in uniform, flanked by officers. Michael's eyes, filled with concern, swept to his father. He dropped down to Jack's side, hands quickly reassuring. Yet Jack said nothing. He only nodded once to ease Michael's worry. He was all right. He would not burden his son further. Dawn light filtered through the trees, dancing across the ambulance roof like an unexpected benediction. A medic approached, sterile gauze and antiseptic in hand. Jack raised a hand in acknowledgement. No plea for mercy. He upheld his veteran's dignity, receive the wound, then handle it himself. The medic removed the embroidered J, layered fresh gauze, and bound it with care. The final bead of blood fell to the concrete, marking the crisis's end. Moments later, Michael guided his father into the ambulance. Jack laid a hand over his son's, pride gleaming in his eyes. Injured though he was, he rose, a testament to an unbowed spirit. Spectators offered quiet applause, not for violence's victory, but for resilience and the nobility of principle. Inside the ambulance, the siren's wail faded into distance. Jack lay on the stretcher, the J handkerchief beside his wound. He closed his eyes, though his mind readied itself for the next chapter. Heal the wound, then return home to Michael's waiting embrace. There, on the kitchen table, would surely be a steaming cup of black coffee and his son's anxious, proud smile, rewards befitting a day triumphant over cruelty. Though the ride to the ER spanned only a few miles, to Jack it felt like another long march etched with memories. Every bump echoed the wartime roads. Every labored breath reminded him that love and family enabled him to lift himself from this fall. His thoughts drifted back to the gas station, where respect had been tested. A faint smile crossed his lips. Violence may knock a man down, but courtesy and courage keep him standing. The ambulance halted at the ER, red lights painting sterile walls. Nurses swiftly transferred Jack to a bed, then turned to console Michael and station staff. "He'll be fine," one assured, voice calm. "Rest and proper care will do the rest." Michael nodded, eyes never leaving his father's face. There lay Jack Sullivan, the J handkerchief laid neatly on his hospital gown. He drew a deep breath, the tang of antiseptic mint filling his nostrils, each heartbeat returning to steady rhythm. War's past, today's wound, and tomorrow's promise blended into a colorful tapestry of Jack's life. At 85, he understood that kindness is more than words. It is steadfast action in the face of injustice. He had lived that truth, undaunted, undefeated, even when a single punch could have felled him. And that handkerchief, with its lone embroidered J, carried his vow to live, forever worthy of the title veteran, for family, for community, and for the enduring value of respect. Caleb Turner stood frozen on the dew-slick concrete of Old Rusty's. The yellow lights cast long shadows of the young men before him. His heart pounded as he saw his father, Jack Sullivan, kneeling by the pump, head tilted to one side, blood streaking his white shirt. Memories of brutal training Jack had once given him, M16 drills, muddy obstacle courses, flooded Caleb's mind. Now the strong teacher, his steadfast father, lay victim to a pointless punch. He fumbled his phone from his pocket, fingers trembling as he dialed without going through the emergency operator. "Chief Michael Sullivan, this is Caleb Turner," he whispered into the receiver. "I'm at Old Rusty's. There's been an assault." On the other end, Michael's breathing sounded urgent. Caleb lowered his voice, snapping photos of the scene, the bloodstain on concrete, the patched-up motorcycle plates, Jack's ashen face braced against the pump. Around him, the youths looked stunned, fear flickering in their eyes when they heard Sullivan. "Sullivan?" their leader gasped to his friends. "The chief's his son?" Caleb said nothing more. He raised the phone like a warning. "I suggest you don't run." A hush fell. Jack, though groaning with pain, lifted a hand to rest gently on Caleb's shoulder, as if to say, "It's okay, I've faced worse." He whispered, faint but firm, "No need to make a big deal of it. I've survived worse." But Caleb shook his head, unwilling to accept that humility. He frowned, voice low. "I'll handle this my way, Dad." 30 minutes later, engines thundered through the station. 2 military SUVs rolled in, their tires crushing gravel, shattering the stillness. Government plates glinted under the floodlights, power and order arriving. Caleb's chest tightened as the first door swung open. Michael Sullivan stepped out in his crisp chief's uniform, face set like stone, eyes razor sharp. At his side, 2 lieutenants, Rodriguez, tall and resolute, and a calm male counterpart, followed, their presence commanding. Michael did not rush to his father. He nodded briefly to his officers, then strode toward the youths, each step measured yet quickening, the metal heels of his boots a steady drum. His hand rested on his holstered pistol, not to threaten, but to affirm Justice's authority. "Who assaulted an 85-year-old veteran?" His voice rang clear, no need to shout. The question sucked the air out of the station. No one dared answer. He advanced 2 more paces and dropped his voice without softening its force. "Let me be absolutely clear. Who hit John Sullivan, Silver Star recipient, Vietnam training advisor, and my father?" The gang leader's knees shook. For the first time, he lowered his gaze. The youth, about Michael's son's age, stepped forward, awkward. "Sir, it was just a misunderstanding," he stammered. Michael cut him off with a cold bark. "A misunderstanding? 16 phones caught it all. Security cameras from 3 angles. Witnesses among your friends. Try again." Michael's glare pinned the youth in place, his words hammering home the gravity of the moment. I lost my temper," the youth choked out. "He told us to move, but I didn't expect this." Lieutenant Rodriguez stepped forward, her tone steel cold. "And that justifies punching a man who trained hundreds of soldiers, including me." She motioned toward Jack, her eyes a mix of respect and outrage. The leader hung his head, hand shaking on a friend's shoulder. He had collided with both a warrior family's power and his own awakened conscience. The others whispered among themselves, fear and remorse flickering in their eyes. Michael said nothing further. He signaled his lieutenants to restrain the youth, handcuffing him firmly, but without brutality. An act of discipline, not violence. Meanwhile, Caleb rushed to his father's side, steadying him against the pump. The bleeding had slowed, but the red stain remained vivid. Jack looked at his son with affection, nodding once. "Thank you." Caleb wrapped his arms around Jack, holding him amid an outpouring of emotion. Michael knelt, placing a hand on Jack's forearm, voice quavering. "You okay, Dad?" Jack managed a weak but resolute smile. "I'm fine, son. Just a scratch." The male lieutenant knelt beside them with a medical kit, pulling out a pristine gauze pad. His flashlight's beam picked out the wound in stark relief. Michael watched every movement, then turned to the youths. "You may explain yourselves, but don't expect to avoid consequences." His calm words carried unmistakable authority, forcing bowed heads and silent compliance. In moments, Jack braced himself on the wall and, leaning on Caleb, stood with gentle assistance. Michael supported his father for a few steady steps toward the waiting SUV. Caleb followed closely, eyes fixed on every move. The station's air felt warmer now, not fear, but hope that justice had been done. As the youths were led away and their roaring bikes fell silent, the police chief and veteran boarded the SUV. Caleb climbed in beside his father. Michael closed the door, started the engine, and the SUV rolled out into the misty dawn. Old Rusty's faded into the background, its earlier chaos replaced by a calm that seemed to erase all memory of conflict. On the drive home, Caleb looked out the window to see Jack leaning back in his seat, eyes open, fixed ahead. Even in pain, that old soldier's posture spoke of a lifetime fighting for freedom. Michael drove slowly. The engine's gentle hum was like a solemn hymn, offering a rare sense of safety. The SUV turned into the Sullivan driveway, street lamps casting soft halos on the brick path. Jack stepped down, Michael guiding him step by step. Caleb walked behind, his heart unusually light. Words were few, each footfall echoed respect and responsibility. Today's attack would become an inspiring story for American audiences, about an aged veteran, a law enforcement family, compassion, and justice's power. Above all, it was a testament that, wherever we stand, respect must be upheld. That morning, sunlight gently kissed the concrete outside Old Rusty's. A calm settled over the gathering crowd as they prepared to fulfill their duties. Michael Sullivan knelt beside the stretcher holding his respected father, Jack, and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Concern softened Michael's face as he said, "I'm late, Dad." His voice carried regret for not arriving sooner. Jack cracked a faint smile, humor and pride sparkling in his eyes. Those SUVs, too flashy for the police. Despite the wound at his temple still bleeding, he refused to shy from a jest, easing the tension. When the interagency officers, local police, and county representatives debated pressing charges against the youths, Jack firmly declined to sue. Seated upright in the ambulance, back braced against its wall, his voice remained warm yet resolute. "Thomas, let him go." County Officer Thomas Baxter raised an eyebrow in immediate dissent, citing regulations that assaulting an elderly citizen, especially a decorated veteran, warranted a strict prosecution. Michael, unwavering, asked his father for a private word. After a brief exchange, Michael returned to the group and announced, "My father will not press charges, but the county will prosecute unless a suitable alternative is found." All eyes turned to Jack as he rose, hand on the stretcher's edge, legs trembling yet steadfast. His voice carried through the small station, silencing everyone. "Young man, do you know why we fought in Korea? We shed blood not for ourselves alone, but so everyone, even those unlike us, could enjoy freedom." He paused, lifting his silver veteran's badge so it gleamed in the morning sun, testament to 70 years of service. "I do not wish you to go to prison." His tone softened, but held authority. "I want you to understand what this badge means." He continued, "I propose you, Ryan Turner, complete 60 hours of community service at the County Veterans Center. There, you will hear the stories, see the scars of wartime, and learn respect between people." The name Ryan Turner echoed in the hush, reminding the tall youth that actions carry consequences and responsibility can replace punishment. Inside the SUV, Michael regarded his father with pride. The rift over legal conflict had been mended by a humane solution. When Ryan nodded, his eyes glistening with remorse, the tension in the group finally eased. Lieutenant Rodriguez placed a hand on Jack's shoulder, and Michael's, smiling. This is how justice should be served. 1 month later, Old Rusty's was renamed Sullivan Station. Under a clear autumn sky, a formal ceremony convened. The U.S. flag fluttered atop its pole. Hundreds of locals, veterans, police, and county officials gathered to honor Jack Sullivan. The national anthem swelled. Sunlight filtered through the trees, illuminating every face with respect's glow. The county base commander approached the podium to present accolades from the U.S. Secretary of the Army. He announced that the new tactical training facility would bear John Jack Sullivan's name, honoring his profound impact on the community and generations of soldiers. Thunderous applause rose like waves, celebrating the heroic journey of an aging veteran. At the ceremony's peak, Jack invited Ryan on stage. The youth approached tentatively until Jack laid a hand on his shoulder, warmth spreading. "He's completed 120 volunteer hours," Jack proclaimed in a resonant voice. "Next month, he and some friends will enlist, earning the respect they once overlooked." His words offered hope to young people that serving one's country not only shapes their future, but redeems past mistakes. As the formalities ended, another veteran, aged yet upright, took the stage with Caleb's help. Staff Sergeant Harold Jenkins, Jack's comrade from Hill 209 in 1952. Memories of brutal combat flooded back as Jenkins paused before Jack, voice trembling. "Sergeant Sullivan, Hill 209, 1952. You carried me through the gunfire so I could live. I never properly thanked you." Silence fell on stage and in the audience. Jack's eyes glistened as he squeezed Harold's hand. "You made it home, Private Jenkins. That's thanks enough?" The ceremony stilled in that poignant moment, binding bonds forged on the front lines. Confetti cannons boomed celebration. The crowd cheered Jack Sullivan's and Staff Sergeant Jenkins's names, honoring timeless valor and brotherhood. When the festivities concluded, Jack, Michael, and Caleb stepped through the station gates. The new sign read, "Sullivan Station, honor not only won on battlefields, it's defended at gas stations." In the glow of sunset, red and gold reflected on the sign like a timeless reminder. Dignity, however tested, will triumph when cherished and upheld. Jack slid into his weathered Chevy Impala. Michael beside him, Caleb gently closed the rear door. The narrow road home felt intimate, each turn a step toward the Sullivan abode. The engine's steady hum and lamplight guided them on this extraordinary journey, where justice and forgiveness rode side by side, and a silver badge stood not merely for metal, but for faith in goodness and the service ideal. Above all, Jack Sullivan's story proved that, whether on distant fronts or quiet gas stations, honor and respect remain beacons for every courageous heart. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this inspiring story. Drop a comment below, share your experiences, or tell us which moment resonated with you the most. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family in the US. Let's spread the message of courage, respect, and the power of compassion.